Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to call the April 2020 Ad Hoc Committee meeting to order. Will the recording secretary please take roll?
Recording secretary, call the roll.
Marisol de la Torre Escobedo.
Here.
Monica Martinez.
Here.
Aide Rodriguez.
Here?
We have a quorum.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you everyone for being here, by the way, under these unusual circumstances and for agreeing to join us via Zoom, commissioners and staff. So this is item 1A, interview and recommendation of members for the Committee on Accreditation. This afternoon, the Ad Hoc Committee will interview candidates to fill vacancies on the Committee of Accreditation, on accreditation. There are 2 post-secondary vacancies and 1 K12 vacancy position. 4 interviews will be conducted. 2 finalists are from institutions of higher education and 2 from the K12 community. At the conclusion of the interview process, hi Cheryl, welcome. At the conclusion of the interview process, the Ad Hoc Committee will recommend to the full commission 1 individual to fill the K12 and 2 individuals to fill the higher ed vacancies to a 4-year term beginning July 1st, 2020. In addition, we may also recommend appointment of any of the applicants to the alternate pool to serve in the event of a vacancy on the COA. The commission will then take final action on Friday. Ms. Hickey, could you please take us through the process?
Certainly. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for agreeing to be part of the Ad Hoc Committee and for doing this really important work of choosing the next COA members. Today, you'll be interviewing finalists to fill 3 positions, as Commissioner Rodriguez mentioned, to fill 3 vacancies on the Committee on Accreditation. And before you begin your first interview, I'd like to share with you a little bit of background information that you may find helpful for your task today. Each year, the Commission interviews and appoints 3 individuals to serve new or continuing 4-year terms that begin July 1 of every year. The membership of COA is equally balanced. So we have 6 K12 practitioners and 6 individuals from the higher education community. And the leadership is also equally balanced with 1 co-chair from higher education and 1 from the K12 community. The current list of the COA members, as you've seen, is on pages 1 and 2 of the agenda item, so you can kind of refer to that throughout the discussion. This year, the vacancies include 1 member from the K12 community and 2 from the IHE community, whose terms are up on June 30th of 2020. The nominations process began in the fall and was closed in February. We announced the vacancies in the PSDE news each week for approximately 2 months and indicated the vacancies on the Commission's website. And the result was that we had 5 applicants, which is lower than we have had for the last couple of years, even though the process used was exactly the same. Just this past week, unfortunately, we received word that one of the applicants, Dr. Doris Madrigal, was no longer eligible for the COA due to budget cuts at her institution. So you have her application materials, but we've had to pull her out of the eligible list of individuals. So she won't be interviewed today. We're hoping that next year she will reapply. So normally the first step after receiving the applications is to convene the nominating panel to review applications and then to narrow the number of individuals to be interviewed down to 2 applicants for each vacancy. The nominating panel is comprised of individuals who are appointed by the Committee on Accreditation and by the Commission Chair, and their sole purpose is to review all of the applications and move the finalists forward to you, the Ad Hoc Committee. 2 individuals, as I said, for each individual vacancy. However, because of the limited number of applications this year and because all the applicants met at least the minimum qualifications, we did not call together the nominating panel, and instead we have sent forward to you, to the Ad Hoc Committee, all of the names. So in addition to recommending the appointment of 3 individuals for a COA to the full commission, you may also recommend appointments to any of the applicants you interview to the alternate pool. And this pool is used by the executive director in the event of an unscheduled vacancy. It's helpful when we have a healthy size alternate pool because the director can then consider balance issues when appointing individuals to serve out unexpected vacancies. The current alternate pool is listed on page 2, and 2 individuals are ineligible as of June 30th of this year. So that's where we are with the alternate pool. So with respect to balance, in addition to the expertise in preparing future educators and expertise needed by new K12 practitioners for today's schools, it's important to ensure balance on the committee so that a wide variety of perspectives are represented. No COA member serves as a representative of their employer, but rather serves on the basis of their expertise. So other balance issues to consider are geographic representation, gender, racial, and ethnic balance, segmental representation, size of the institution they may be currently employed at, public versus private, among other considerations. And the current members are listed on pages 1 and 2. Pages 3 and 4 of the agenda item discusses these various aspects of balance and the requirements set in the education code for membership. So we have met all of those requirements. Of particular note, I would like to highlight a few things for you to consider. Currently, the COA has representation from all systems of higher education. The positions being vacated are currently being held by a representative of the UC and of a CSU. And of the 4 remaining IHE members, 3 are from independent institutions and 1 from a CSU. So if you were not to fill any of the IHE vacancies today, we would no longer have a UC representative. Gender balance. Of the 9 remaining COA members, 4 are male and 5 are female. So we have good balance there. Geographic representation. Of the 9 remaining COA members, 6 are from Southern California and 2 are from Northern California. And 1 is soon to be changing CSUs, so we'll be moving from the north to the south, bringing the totals of 7 from the south and 2 to the north, from the north. 2 of the applicants are current members of the COA, and both are eligible for a second term. So I provided you all with 4 broad questions to ask each applicant, and I will caution you that in an effort to be fair to all candidates, if you ask a follow-up question from one, you should probably ask that question of all of the candidates, unless it's just clarification of something that they may have said. These questions have been emailed to all of the applicants this morning so that they had a few hours to at least get their thoughts together. And we have allotted about 15 minutes for each candidate to respond to the questions for each interview. We will need a few minutes, obviously, in between each interview to let the person know that we're letting them into the interview session, and also to make sure that their technology is working. So at the end of all the interviews, you will deliberate and vote to recommend to the full commission 3 individuals for appointment to the COA, should you find those candidates acceptable. And as a reminder, you may also appoint any of the applicants to the alternate pool from which the executive director can pull an unexpected vacancy. There is 1 written comment for the agenda item, and it is posted it's from Edmundo Litton, one of our veteran reviewers. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the process, and we can get started as soon as you're ready.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Hickey. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Martinez?
I just have a question if we want to divide up the questions. I was thinking maybe since you're the chair, Commissioner Rodriguez, that you can open and close, and Commissioner Torre Escobedo and myself can split 2 and 3.
Okay, so I'll ask the first question, and then
Marisol, you want to do the second one?
Yeah, I'll do number 2.
I'll do 3. You do 4? Yes, you, Commissioner Rodriguez. You're the chair. You get number 1 and 4.
Okay, excellent. All right, and so our first, so I'm 1, you're 2, Commissioner Martinez?
No.
Commissioner De La Torre, you are 3, and there is Dr. Forbes. So you are our first candidate today. Welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you. How's everybody doing?
You know,
No.
yes, as well as can be expected under these circumstances. No complaints here.
Well, I'm glad to see you all.
Yes, thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Dr. Forbes, could you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation? We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and or your specific experiences in the accreditation process.
Okay, thanks. Well, I started my
Dr. Forbes, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I forgot to do one thing, and that is to introduce myself, Commissioner Rodriguez, and to introduce my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Martinez and Commissioner de la Torre Escobedo. And sorry about that. I just,
okay.
okay, I was ready to go. All right, so please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I started my career as an elementary bilingual teacher in the early 80s in South County, San Diego, in a border area school. So I was an elementary school teacher for about 12 and a half years. In the mid 90s, I started teaching at UCSD, where I was, we were an early adopter of CLAD. So I taught some of the CLAD related courses and supervised bilingual student teacher candidates, as well as teaching methods until from mid 90s to 2008. In 2008, I became the director of teacher education at UC San Diego, which is the position I currently hold. And so I'm responsible for oversight for our credential programs, which include multiple and single subject, education specialist, deaf and hard of hearing, induction, reading and literacy, added authorization, CTEL. Those latter three are housed in extension, but we partner with them on those efforts. And then we have a bilingual authorization program as well. So I think most of my career I've been mainly focused on English learner and bilingual education reform issues. I've been active in CABE, my whole career. A recent project that I've been really excited about is a cross-border collaboration between UC San Diego State, the Normal in Baja California, and also the Universidad Pedagógica Nacional, to collaborate around preparing teachers to meet the needs of transnational students we share, which has been a very exciting project that we hope can continue in some format in these times. I was also at the commission a member of the English Learner Panel from 2009 to 2011, representing the University of California. I was a member of the Bilingual Authorization Program Standards Work Group that met over the past year to take a look at updating the bilingual authorization standards. And I was really very pleased to be selected for the new Bilingual Authorization Panel Work Group that was supposed to have met last month, but hopefully we're going to be able to reconvene in a distance format next month. So as far as accreditation goes, I've been a faculty participant in all phases of accreditation since the mid-90s, but culminating kind of when I led a successful site accreditation visit in 2014, which was quite an eye-opening experience. And I've been a member of the Board of Institutional Reviewers since 2008. I've been through all the different phases of the accreditation process, from IPR to site accreditation visit teams. And I was a team lead for a couple of those toward the end of my tenure on the BIR, when I became a member of the Committee on Accreditation in 2016. I was also the co-chair of the Accreditation Policies and Procedures Task Force in the strengthening and streamlining accreditation effort that took place from 2014 to 2015. So that's kind of a panorama. Gee, I feel old.
Great,
Right.
thank you. Sorry,
I had to unmute myself. My little dog is barking in the background. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Forbes. And we'll have Commissioner Martinez ask question 2.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go with that. Thank you for your response, by the way. As we all toggle between screens and get used to this.
I know.
As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
So one of the things that I appreciate about the team reports is the way that it helps us understand the convergence of evidence or not between different stakeholder groups, including candidates, program completers, district employed supervisors, employers, faculty, and staff. And so that's the first thing I think is that's so important, is to make sure that there's evidence of the standards being met across those different stakeholder groups. Because sometimes there might be an issue in one place that doesn't really show up across different constituent groups. So it still needs to be attended to, but it doesn't rise to quite the same level of intervention that you see when there's something that's, a repeating pattern. And then I think one of the other things that I've learned, starting with the time that I spent on the accreditation task force, is to look for signs of institutional capacity for actually being able to plan and implement the feedback received in accreditation. So I know that some of the things that I found interesting in my current tenure in the COA is helping institutions network with each other so that they can learn from each other's experiences, guided by the staff. That's not really the purview of the COA, but as a result of some of our recommendations through the stipulation process or the, concerns that were raised in the accreditation process, it seems to be a way to help build that institutional capacity so that it really becomes a continuous improvement system. I mean, it's certainly important to ensure that our K12 students are served by really well-prepared teachers. And so the rigor of the standards and maintaining that rigor and making sure that the standards are actually being met by each of the programs is the first responsibility of the COA. But then I think within that, the thing I appreciate in California is that continuous improvement system that helps the ones who are doing well continue to get better, as well as those issues that surface in specific programs.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And next, Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo.
Hello, Dr. Forbes.
Hi.
Hi. What do you see as the biggest challenge for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years? And how can you are appointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
Boy, wouldn't I have answered that differently 2 months ago? So, obviously right now, I think our most immediate concern in the rest of this year and in 2021 will be ensuring that the candidates who are currently in the system are on track to finish, are able to finish. And so, helping to provide those, that's the purview of the Commission, obviously, to make those adjustments the flexibility that's possible, which I know you're considering in this meeting. And so thinking about that at the accreditation level, how can we specifically, I think, continue to support induction, which is now going to be kind of retooling to help support these candidates that are going to be finishing some elements of the preliminary credentials within their teacher or administrator induction programs. And so as these induction programs come up through the accreditation cycle, I think helping learn about and reflect on best practices for site team visits throughout this whole now virtual site team visit experience, which is going to be new for everyone too, will be something that I think the COA can play a role in providing feedback and thinking through some of those new ideas about a virtual site team visit, and also helping programs think about alternative forms of evidence that they're going to be collecting in the accreditation cycle when they're not seeing their students face to face. We're not seeing the K12 students face-to-face, and we're not seeing our teacher education students or administrator or pupil personnel students face-to-face. So I think beyond that, though, meeting the challenge of this pandemic in the P12 education system is the biggest challenge that faces all of us. across the country and certainly in California. And we're going to need teachers and administrators and other personnel who can address not only the educational excellence issues and providing really quality learning experiences, but probably even more importantly, equity for kids across the state with so many different types of needs that different populations will have in accessing education and making sure that we don't disenfranchise groups of kids. And so how the accreditation process can help support that in terms of providing meaningful feedback to programs through that accreditation cycle that helps them think about the challenges of providing that educational equity, both for our teacher candidates, but also to help them really be sure that they're using the teaching performance expectations, for example, to monitor and to try to reach out to all groups of constituents within the K-12 schools. And so I think that leads us to continue our work to identify exemplary practices, which has been something that's been, in process for a little while. I mentioned some of the induction examples earlier that were more informal networking, but I know that the Commission has been interested in the past, and we've talked several times in COA about helping to identify these exemplary practices and promising practices and programs that can help inform the field, especially in this time of the really strong challenges for P12 education and providing equity and excellent instruction. And so, how we can help them network together and identify policy levers that might be useful, I think is another important role that we can play in the process of, making accreditation decisions.
Thank you so much. Okay, and so the last question, is there anything else that you would like to add that you think would be important for us to know as we consider your application for the COA?
Well, I think mainly I'd just like to express appreciation for the opportunity to apply to serve another term. I've found this to be such a meaningful experience professionally and also, of course, back at my own work site in helping our own program continue to improve. So I think that's the main thing. I really very much appreciate the professional opportunity.
Thank you. And we definitely appreciate all of your service, all of your thoughtful commitment. So, the work that the COA doesn't go unnoticed by us, especially because of their liaison who takes it all back.
That's right. I was just going to say, that's right. Which is so, is another, I think, really wonderful experience for us.
That connection, absolutely. So, commissioners, are there any other questions for Dr. Forbes?
None, just thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and we'll be in touch soon with our decision. Okay.
Be safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's see here. We have our second candidate for this position, and we're going to give a little bit of time to get caught up. And so it's my understanding that Doris Madrigal will not be interviewing. However, it appears that we have Lynn Larson. And so we will wait for her to come on the line.
Is Cheryl still on?
Yes, I am.
Is Cheryl Hickey?
Uh-huh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's here.
Checking to make sure we hadn't lost our.
There she is.
All
I
right.
am here. I'm just had turned off my video for
Okay. There you are. All right, reassurance. Okay.
Here
And we have
I am.
Lynn here.
and there's
Okay.
Lynn. So I'm going to stop my video and let you guys take over.
Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. Hello, Dr. Larson. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone.
Good
Hello.
afternoon. And I'm Commissioner Aide Rodriguez. With me are Commissioners Marisol de la Torre and Monica Martinez. We're going to ask you a few questions, and at the end of the interview, you'll have an opportunity to ask us any questions that you may have. So before we get started, do you have any questions for the panel?
I don't know. The process has been very clear. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So I'll go ahead and start with the first question. Please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation. We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 learners, credential candidates' involvement in the education reform movement and or actually efforts and or specific experiences in the accreditation process.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for this opportunity to speak with you all today. It's definitely challenging times for all of us. So I appreciate you all being here and participating in that process. I have a long career in the field of education. I received my initial teacher licensure in Michigan in 1990 and was a public school, middle and high school special education teacher for 6 years. During that time, I also earned a master's degree in education with an emphasis in gifted education. And then I went on and earned my doctorate in special education from the University of Maryland in College Park in 2003. Starting in 2004, I was hired as a professor at Brandman University, and I've been there ever since. As many of you may know, we're an institution that serves adult learners. We are a Hispanic serving institution as well. So we serve, a very unique population, a very diverse population as well. For 7 years, I was also served as associate dean. So I oversaw 4 faculty teams during Brandman's NCATE CTC joint accreditation visit time period. And so during that time, I was heavily involved with report writing, standards reporting, and working with the leadership team for our dual site visit. At that time, I oversaw 4 different programs, including special ed, our autism authorization, the CTEL authorization, PPSP, PPSC. In my role as associate dean during that time, I also mediated grade appeals and probationary status decisions for students. So I have some knowledge and experience dealing with students or institutions that may not quite be coming up to grade and mediating that situation and helping out with that. I've been on the board of institutional reviewers since 2012. I said 2013 in my letter, but I actually found a review from 2012 in my email. So during that time, I reviewed numerous special ed programs. I've participated in site visits. I've reviewed programs that are outside of my area of expertise because I'm seen as a reviewer who is thorough and can, evaluate the standards and evaluate the reports. And except for the 7 years as associate dean when I was not allowed to do so, I've supervised student teachers and interns. So I've also been on out in the schools and seeing what's going on with programs and with student teachers and interns. As far as educational reform is concerned, I was a founding member of the CDAR state leadership team for the state of California. So I actually wrote Brandman's part of the grant for the CDAR program, and I've been heavily involved with that through the first and second iterations of that program. As a member of that team, we've been working very closely with developing educational policy and reform for the state of California across all of the public and private institutions. I've been involved in multiple presentations on education, special education reform and assessment through that and through other work that I'm doing at Brandman. And I also wrote the program evaluation course for our master's in special education, so I can see things in a broad perspective. And finally, I'm heavily involved in course and program evaluation at our institution. So I'm involved, I was just appointed to our assessment team, which is involved with accreditation issues. So we do data analysis and collection. We're going to be involved with writing any accreditation documents for our upcoming site visit in a couple of years. And we meet monthly and set policy and procedure for accreditation for the School of Education.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your experience with us. Now, Commissioner Martinez has the second question.
Yes, as a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
In all the program reviews that I've done, it's really adherence to program and specialty standards. That's really the critical element. So that's what all the programs have to adhere to. And so our process needs to ensure that all institutions are following through with that appropriately. I always look for clear and detailed evidence indicating how candidates in the program are meeting those particular standards. And if there's gaps or so on, we need to identify those and ask the program to make sure that they're meeting those. And then just ensuring that a program is implemented with fidelity. And that's where the site visit comes into play, where we can really dig in deep with what's going on at the institution, do those interviews, talk with students, talk with faculty, and really see, okay, this is what you've said on paper, now what's actually going on in the field. So I think all of those things working together is a cohesive system where we can ensure program fidelity.
Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo?
Yes. Dr. Larson, what do you see as the biggest challenge for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years? And how can you, if you are appointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
I think it's always important. I saw in your documentation that's going forward to the Commission tomorrow, you have a strategic plan goal. So whenever you have strategic goals, it's important to adhere to them. So the things that you mentioned in there, effectively and efficiently monitor program implementation and outcomes, hold all of those educator programs to high standards, and require continuous improvement. So I think anything that we do, we have to be sure that that's focusing back to that strategic goal, because that's something that you've set for yourself. I do see three things that may be coming up in the near future that are going to be important things for the COA to consider. The implementation of new standards for PPSP, PPSC, and special education, that's a big undertaking. PPSC and PPSC are large programs with many, many moving parts. With all the fieldwork requirements and everything that's involved with those programs. It's the largest programs at our institution in terms of number of units. And so making sure that all of the programs that are going through the review process are truly meeting all of those new standards and able to implement them with fidelity is going to be really important. And I think with my experience overseeing PPSC and PPSC for 7 years as Associate Dean, I have some knowledge about how those programs work. I have some PPSP students that take some concurrent courses in my program as well. One of the courses that I oversee has PPSP students in it. And so I have a unique perspective about the implementation of that particular program. And obviously special ed, that's my area. I'm a special education professor. We're deep in the waters with rewriting our program right now. So I have intricate knowledge of those new standards. I also have knowledge of the Common Trunk because we did a lot of collaborative work at our institution between gen ed and special ed when multiple subjects and single subjects were writing to the new standards with the Common Trunk. So I have a pretty thorough knowledge of that program as well and understand those standards. That's going to be a big task, just like I mentioned, overseeing all of these new programs rolling out. And it's not been a straight process for the standards for special education. So it's going to be complicated work for the COA over the next few years, reviewing all of those new programs. The second thing I see is this was happening before the pandemic hit, but now more than ever, we're seeing universities moving to online experiences for our candidates. And Bramman's been doing online education and courses since 2008. And so I have extensive knowledge and expertise in the area of online education and clinical practice and good models for that, what types of strategies work and don't work. And so being able to look at program submissions and seeing how they're doing maybe online, different aspects of online, I'm going to bring some unique knowledge and experience in that particular area. The last area that I see bringing some complexity to COA for the next few years are the new accreditation bodies that are out there. So we know that the new Association for Advancing Quality in Educator Preparation is gaining steam. We see more institutions considering or going for that instead of CAPE. And so trying to figure out how can we align all of these different accrediting bodies so that institutions have a streamlined process when they're going through accreditation. So we're not expecting, well, you write this for CTC, but you have to do this completely different process for the accrediting body that you chose for national accreditation. So attempting to work with those different accrediting bodies to streamline the process, I think is going to be a big undertaking for COA as well.
Thank you. And lastly, is there anything else that you would like to add that you think would be important for us to know as we consider your application for the COA?
Just to reiterate some of the experience I can bring to the table that I think is unique. We at Bramman, we have been going through the initial stages of CAPE, but now we are considering the new Association for Advancing Quality in Educator Preparation. And as I'm sitting on the accreditation team for the SOE, I'll be able to bring knowledge of both accrediting processes and again, how we might be able to dovetail and streamline that with CTC accreditation. I was recently just asked to also sit on Brandman's WASC accreditation site visit steering committee. And I know that doesn't dovetail with CTC, but again, it's another opportunity for me. I've been involved with WASC accreditation before, and I think the more opportunities you have to be involved with accreditation and see how different organizations do that process, that can be used to inform our process at CTC as well. And just again, I'm knowledgeable about all of the programs that run through CTC, not as deeply as I understand special education, but I do have a working knowledge of all the other programs, and I think that would be beneficial to this team.
Excellent. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for Dr. Larson?
No.
Thank you so much for your time, and we will be deliberating today. So we'll let you know as soon as, or you'll be contacted as soon as there's a decision.
Okay, great. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Larson.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Should we deliberate now for this position or go through the next two interviews that we have?
It'd be easier if we could do the higher ed ones.
Do the deliberation first?
Yeah, but what does Cheryl want to?
I agree.
I think you could go either way. I don't know, maybe Rhonda can tell us whether the other folks are on or, because I think it's perfectly fine for you to break it up and do it this way. They can kind of hold on. They're in a waiting room. I don't know how that works, but they're in a waiting room.
Our next one is not scheduled until
Zoom
3.
world.
That would be
What did
good.
you say, Rhonda?
Rhonda, can you repeat that?
The next candidate for the K12 position is not scheduled until 3:50. So if you would like to go ahead and deliberate.
Which is so efficient.
Good use of time.
Did you say 350 as in 350? All right. Okay. So this will give us enough time to deliberate. Ad hoc committee members. Would anybody like to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can start. I mean, I think Cheryl, you know, I would like the continuity of her experience and also the from the southern part of California and her experience with the bilingual standards and certification. But I also really liked how she described the accreditation process, really talking about the triangulation of information. And just her depth of knowledge about the process really impressed me. I mean, Lynn was equally as impressive about her knowledge of accreditation at large and kind of how she talked about the future challenges of other accrediting bodies. I thought was something I hadn't thought about as well. But I would like to stick with the continuity of the experience of Cheryl and certainly think of Lynn as an alternate if we move to that kind of direction.
Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo?
Yes, I agree. In terms of Dr. Forbes, I really appreciated just her understanding in terms of the important things to look for when making an accreditation decision, from the team reports to the evidence to the levels of intervention to institutional capacity. She just seemed to have everything in a row from, A to Z here. And also just in terms of helping institutions network their plans for growth and just the continuous improvement system that accreditation is there for to set up.
Yeah, I would just build on one more thing about that is I like how you described it, Marisol. It was because she saw the multidimensional sides of accreditation, and I really appreciated the other candidate as well, but it was very much about the standards, adherence to it, and using that as a frame, which I deeply appreciate because that's what we want. But I felt the first candidate, Dr. Forbes, she really got the multidimensional pieces of the process.
Okay, and I agree. Oops, I just had a little visitor. I completely, that's why he stopped barking, because I let him in. I completely agree with everything that you've said, and also want to add about the UC that Dr. Forbes is our UC representative. And our other candidate was incredibly impressive and has some wonderful experience to share. And I hope that she continues, with accreditation, mentioned that she's currently involved with WASC and has actually been part of reviews. However, my inclination, mainly, not mainly, everything that you mentioned, plus the UC factor, it's so important to have UC representatives because if my memory serves me, and I think Ms. Hickey just mentioned that all of our other higher ed people are private. That's correct, right?
That's correct. And I just want to remind you, there are 2 vacancies, so you can appoint both of those individuals should you want to do that. So 2 individuals can be appointed for the IHE position. For the K12 position, there's only 1, and you have 2.
I was confused. I thought it was the other way around.
No, it changes every year. I mean, every other year it goes the other way. So this year is 2 IHE positions, 1 K12 position.
I move to reappoint Dr. Forbes to the
second that.
Commission on Accreditation. And I also think, Commissioner Martinez, you were talking about having our other candidate.
Yes, Lynn Larson. I will move. Yeah, that Lynn Larson is also appointed to the committee.
I second.
Okay. And so anyone opposed?
And
No.
I think you have to actually do a voice vote because it's a technology assistant.
Oh.
And I think Rhonda or Haju was going to call.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. So for the first motion to reappoint Dr. Forbes, we're going to have a roll call vote.
Marisol del Toro Escobedo,
So do I say aye? Okay.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
Ade Rodriguez,
Aye.
Okay, so then for the second motion to appoint Dr. Lynn Larson to the committee, right?
Yes. We have
Marisol del Toro Escobedo,
so we have a motion. Did we have a second?
Oh, second.
Yeah, we did that before.
Okay.
I thought. Okay, so now I guess.
Should we do this again? Sorry, Haju.
I do, help us.
okay. The first one is Marisol del Toro Escobedo,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
Ade Rodriguez,
Aye.
and Chair needed to announce both motion carries.
All right.
Great.
Great. And
I think that's great. I think Dr. Larson, it'll be great to have her on there with so many experienced people. And I really appreciate her diverse experience with other accrediting bodies.
Absolutely. And so this recommendation will go to the full commission on, I think, Friday.
Friday.
Great.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay.
Excellent.
And I don't know if the next person is on or not. I'll leave that to Rhonda.
Not yet.
Okay. I know we were trying to reach him to tell him we were running just a few minutes early, so.
There he is. He's on now.
Okay, great. I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. All right. So we have Jason Lee.
Jinx.
Can you, oh, let me get my video going. I apologize.
We can hear you at least.
Oops. And I have my virtual background on from my previous Zoom.
Oh.
I will
Yep.
leave AT&T Park right now and come back to my living room.
You would be in serious violation. Shelter at home.
Exactly. You saw those people.
And all those thousands of people as well. Yes.
All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So Our first K through 12 finalist is Jason Lee. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, yeah. You're hooked on phonics. Good job.
Hello, Mr. Lee. I'm Commissioner Aida Rodriguez. And with me today are Commissioners Marisol de la Torre Escobedo and Martinez. We're going to ask you a few questions, and at the end of the interview, you'll have an opportunity to ask us any questions if you have any.
Great.
Do you have any questions for the panel yet before we get started?
No, none at this point. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'll go ahead and start with question one. Please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation. We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K through 12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and/or your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
All right. First, I was a single subject teacher. I taught social science at the high school and middle school level for 6 years before I entered in administration. I was an assistant principal for a year, and then I was a site principal for 13 years. And during that time, I led a school that had a drastic change in demographics. My first year, we were about 12% Latino, and my last year before I left, went to the district office level, we were at 46% Latino. And the average stint of our teaching crew at that point was about 17 and a half years. So it was a change for folks, and it really was a great opportunity for me to kind of provide some leadership to people to look at how do we better serve the changing demographics, not just our school, but of Sonoma County, and how do we get the right things and supports in place for our English learners, and how do we become leaders and a kind of a flagship for the other schools in our county that were experiencing the same demographic shift over that 10-year period. So I really enjoyed that piece of it. I'm born and raised in Santa Rosa, and was a product of the city schools here. And I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood, product of a single mom. And so it's really been something that's been a part of who I am, is really looking to how do we ensure social justice and equity of access to all students. So when I went to the district office, became assistant superintendent of human resources for 4 years, I was the primary lead on professional development for principals, and how do they become stronger at instructional leaders on their campus, and again with the equity focus in mind. So that's really something that I've been passionate about for a long time. And even in my new position as executive director of North Coast School of Education, my own personal goal is to increase the number of Latino teachers in our county. And so that kind of work started when Dr. Carlos Ayala was the Dean of Education at Sonoma State, and he and I worked on a partnership. And we started some classes at 2 of our high schools, called La Puerta, which was a program to kind of introduce Latino students to professional careers in education. Unfortunately, Dr. Ayala left and went down to the Inland Empire, where he's doing some great work down there. But I've been working and putting together a task force of educational leaders, superintendents, assistant principals, and principals to really kind of still move forward with this, and have started to kind of make some connections between the Santa Rosa Junior College and Sonoma State to look to see how do we use North Coast and how do I use my relationships in the county to increase the number of Latino teachers in our county. So our teaching force more closely mirrors the students that we have in our county. Right now, we have 5% of our teachers in the county are Latino, and a little less than that are bilingual. So that's something that I've been really working for. And Dr. Harrington, our current county superintendent, has given me a lot of leeway and a lot of kind of with resources to really start making that a focus for North Coast School of Education and for the County of Sonoma. So that's what kind of brought me to thinking about how do I then take that even to the next level by looking at participating in the Commission on Accreditation.
Okay, thank you so much for your response. Now, Commissioner Martinez.
Yeah, thank you so much. As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
Well, the first thing obviously is we know that first best instruction is the best way to close the achievement gap. And that's achievement gap and equity of access is something that's truly important to me. And so if we have programs that have quality are providing quality training for teachers who are really developing best first instruction. That would be probably the primary thing. But secondly, looking at how our programs reaching out to underrepresented folks in the community to interest them in careers in education. I think it needs to be part of a program. It needs to be a proactive piece of the program, and so that would be something that would be important to me. But obviously, first best instruction and making sure that the teachers are prepared, or any administrators or whatever the program is truly prepared to serve the students of California.
Thank you. Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo.
All right. Hello. What do you see as the biggest challenges for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years? And how can you, if you are appointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
Well, I think probably the most timely thing that the Commission is currently facing and will continue to face for the next couple of years is how do you, the Commission, support programs across the state when they're going to be facing the financial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know that California's public school funding systems are based on property taxes and capital gains tax, and we don't know yet at this point what the impact financially is going to be on the dollars coming to school districts all over, which then impacts hiring, which impacts class sizes, which impacts a lot of things, which then in turn impacts programs like my program at North Coast School of Education. So that is, going to be the immediate thing that is going to need to be looked at, and we're supporting programs across the state. Secondly, there's just in Sonoma County, if you look at Sonoma County as a microcosm of what education is in California, we have Santa Rosa schools with just under 16,000 students, and then we have Kashaya single school district with 14 students on an Indian reservation. So we're serving a very diverse group of students primarily, and then also systems. So having an understanding of just the vast variety of systems that exist in public education in California is going to be important. And how do we, with one institution that has one set of guidelines and laws and that govern the decisions that are made at the CTC and the COA, how do we kind of take into account all of the different variables? And again, this would be something that I bring with me is the idea of equity of access and social justice. I mean, that's going to be important. And I think that has to be, if we're really going to close the achievement gap in California, it has to be something that we're focusing on at every level of education in California.
Thank you. And lastly, is there anything else you would like to add that you think would be important for us to know as we consider your application for the COA?
I'd just like to say thank you for this opportunity. I came into North Coast School of Education in July 2018 with an accreditation visit in March the following year. I've learned a great deal through that process and through a lot of the trainings put on by the CTCA. It's been just an amazing learning experience. And I think having the new perspective on that coming from the HR side of where I was trying to the day before school starts, some days even after, is filling classrooms with substitutes, trying to figure out how am I going to find special ed teachers to serve these kids, and how do I, make sure that the adults we're putting in classrooms with our students are the best for those kids. And that was just 5 years ago. Into the other side of the system, how are we then helping districts meet that need in our current situation with teacher shortage and the changes that have taken place? Brings us kind of a fresh perspective on boots on the ground approach. And I think that is important. I'm still very well connected in Sonoma County with superintendents and districts. I'm a very hands-on person, so I spend a lot of time reaching out to my candidates, reaching out to the districts we serve, to the superintendents and HR folks to really kind of make sure that they're being heard and that we're meeting their needs. And that was something I'd bring to the commission as well. I think Ms. Rodriguez, you're muted right now.
Thank you. I was never.
You create some Zoom hand signals. It's like, we. Because I could see everyone else's smiles.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Lee. And
no problem. And I really appreciate the opportunity, and I know that it's an important decision because the work you do is very important. And so I appreciate the opportunity. It was great to see you all in your little, 2x3 square.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so we'll be deliberating after our next interview, and you'll be
no problem.
contacted by the COA based on our decision. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much. And I hope that all of your families are staying safe. And at this point, I think more importantly, sane. I have all four of my daughters are home right now. And my wife teaches 6th grade also. And so oftentimes, that's why I was glad it was in the afternoon, because we would have been battling for broadband if it had been in the morning. She was zooming in with her 6th graders. So thank you all so much. And please take care of your families and yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you.
All right.
Great. And the next one apparently was having some sound issues, so I'm hoping that the sound has been worked out.
There's.
I see him. Jared Morrison.
Okay.
Hi, Jared.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool.
Were you saying something?
No, I just wanted to check if I needed to move closer to the microphone, but if you can hear me.
No. You're coming in just fine.
It's a great connection.
Yes.
I don't see my video coming through. Oh, I'm muted on the video. Sorry.
It's okay.
Somebody has me muted on the video.
Oh, Haiju, Rhonda, or Cheryl, do we have
You actually
other
can turn on your camera yourself.
So if you look, Jared, at the bottom left of your screen, you'll see a microphone where you unmuted yourself, and then you see a video icon.
Video, yeah.
I tried that, yeah. It's
And
not
then if you
working.
hit the arrow, it should give you a choice of HD camera.
Yep. True Vision. Got it, but it's still got the red line across it.
Is your camera on your laptop?
Yep,
Huh. You see the green light or whatever?
I can see it, yeah.
Well, we're happy to interview you without a video if that's acceptable.
Okay, well, that's a picture of me on vacation in Peru. If you're happy with that, I am.
Haiju and Cheryl or Rhonda, is it okay if we just do audio with Jared?
I believe it's fine. I don't think I have the ability to turn his video on. And Rhonda and Haiju, I don't think you do either, do you? It has to be done by him, right?
No.
We don't either.
Okay, great. Yep, so we'll do it this way.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I just had a meeting with other people and the video was working fine on the same computer, so I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started. How are you, Gerard? Good to see you. Good to see
Good to see you too.
Thank you. So the next K12 finalist is Gerard Morrison. And good afternoon, Mr. Morrison. I'm Commissioner Aida Rodriguez. With me today are Commissioners Marisol de la Torre Escobedo and Monica Martinez. We are, what's that?
Hello.
We're going to ask you a few questions, and at the end of the interview, you'll have the opportunity to ask us any questions if you have any. So I'll go ahead and get started with the first question here.
Okay.
Please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation. We're interested in your teaching experience, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and or your specific experiences in the accreditation process.
Okay, well, I'm a social studies teacher. I've been a teacher for 23 years. All of that time's been at secondary school. I usually teach history, but I did teach special education for a couple of years. Right now, I'm actually teaching a social studies class, but it's economics and government and civics I'm teaching. I'm not teaching history this year. But for most of my career, I've been a history teacher. I'm a National Board Certified Teacher, which I'm very proud of that. I work in Long Beach Unified School District, and Long Beach is a very diverse city. The school district reflects that diversity. Say the majority of my students are non-white, the vast majority. We have good representation of Hispanic students, Asian students, Pacific Islanders. The schools really do reflect our diverse city. I have had experience, lots of experience with student teachers, and so I see related work of the committee on a day-to-day basis, working with candidates. I hope to continue that in the future. The accreditation I've experienced about at high school is WASC accreditation. I was part of the team that led our WASC accreditation at my school last time round. And I've also been part of accreditation for my school as a linked learning gold standard school. We were one of the first few schools in California. We are industry themed school, and two of our pathways went through the certification process successfully. And I was the coordinator at the school who led that certification campaign. So I feel I've had lots of high school experience.
Okay, thank you so much. And Commissioner Martinez has the next question.
To unmute and all this electronic. As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
Well, I would be absolutely focused on whether the institution has met the standards that have been laid out for accreditation. I know I'm familiar with the process. I know the work that goes into it with the teams that go out and review the institutions. And so those reports and how the accreditation team see the adherence to the standards, the report of the team would play a big part in whether I think they should get accredited.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner de la Torre Escobedo?
Yes. So what do you see as the biggest challenges for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years? And how can you, if you are appointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
Well, I think the biggest challenge in the short term is going to be how this virus shakes out, to be honest. So I think it's all up in the air right now. So in the short term, is the committee going to be able to see site visits at institutions? Are we going to be able to go out and talk to people who've gone through the process? That kind of stuff is going to be a big problem. I think we're going to have to rethink the way we do accreditation if we're living in this kind of world for more than a few months. But that aside, longer term, I think that the way our state is changing, the needs of the state for teachers is constantly changing. In particular, I'm aware of our need for career and technical education teachers. As I said, the whole of my district actually has industry themed pathways. We have 3 at my school, and it's very hard to get career and CTE teachers. I think that's going to be a big issue for the state. And so I think the accreditation body is going to have to look at ways of how we get the teachers that are fitting the needs of our students. How do we accredit institutions, or are there alternative accreditation methods for CTE teachers? So the state's changing, the population's changing, what we think schools should be is changing, and I think the committee has a long-term obligation to make sure that as we change, we keep to the same standards that we have now.
So, Mr. Morrison, is there anything else that you would like to add that you think would be important for us to know as we consider your application for the COA?
Yes, well, I'm sure you know, I've actually been on the committee for the last 4 years, which has been a great experience. I think that would give me a good start in what will be challenging times. I can't imagine beginning 4 years ago if I'd have been doing my initial meetings on Zoom or something like this. I think the fact that I have experience on the committee and know how it works is going to be a big plus if the future is meetings like this. But I've also learned a lot. There is a learning curve. First year or so, I felt a little dazed about what was going on, but I feel as though I now understand it. I feel like I understand what's important on the committee, and I think my experience as a classroom teacher, I'm in the classroom every day. I work with student teachers. I think that perspective needs to be represented on the committee. It isn't always the first thing that people need to hear, but it's definitely a part of the process. And I think as a classroom teacher, someone who's there every day brings a useful perspective to the committee.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and deliberate. We have our CTC meeting coming up tomorrow and Friday. We'll make our recommendation to the commission on Friday, and then you'll be contacted by either Ms. Hickey or Ms. Clark regarding our decision.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and stay safe.
You too. Good
Thank
speaking
you.
to you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, commissioners.
Just as a reminder, there's one position and also the possibility of an alternate pool.
Okay, wonderful. So commissioners, would somebody like to start? Your thoughts on our two K12 candidates?
I really wanted the Sonoma County person to be a strong candidate because I always think it's so nice to have a county rep, but I felt like he did not relate his experiences to accreditation and why on this committee and what he could offer. I appreciate and love his background, that he's, serving the county where he went to school, and all that really great kind of integrity to kind of the educational development and in terms of, his own public schooling to Sonoma State, to everything. But I didn't feel that maybe there was a deep enough understanding about the role of the accreditation when I didn't hear him really talk about the application of his skills and knowledge to the accreditation process.
Okay, Commissioner De La Torre, Escobedo?
Yeah, I would also add, it gets similar to the last interview, just this whole idea of the continuity and the understanding of the accreditation process. With Gerard, I really appreciated his response to question number 3 in terms of the biggest challenges, not only in the short term with the pandemic, but also in terms of site visits.
Yeah.
And how, one of the things just in the short term, long term, just in terms of how we're going to have to rethink accreditation in the short term, and also in the long term, just how our state is changing, our need for teachers is constantly changing, and how do we get the teachers we need, and how does accreditation impact that and make that happen?
Yes, I agree on all counts, and I also really appreciated hearing from Mr. Lee and his experience.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that at the commission we've been really working on, which is I think one of the reasons why the liaison spot was created, so that we would be on par philosophically with what we're doing and how it's how the accreditation process is going. And so going to the continuity, but also the experience, right? Pretty soon we have the, we're looking at the CTE standards. We're looking at, we've brought up linked learning in the past. That's something that is I heard Mr. Morrison talking about that, and that experience, I think, is something, keeping that experience there right now with all of the changes that are happening, and is very important, because he brings a wealth of knowledge. That's not to say that Mr. Lee doesn't, but a wealth of knowledge that is necessary for this time, to keep that continuity and to continue in that direction.
Yeah, I concur with that. And I would also add that kind of where you're going is that I think to be in a strong district like Long Beach, where you have a pretty sophisticated system and there's connection to the teacher prep program there, master teachers. So I like that continuity, not just that he's been on it before, but understands what a good system looks like, and has been there long enough to know and understand that, and then think about other systems. So
I also appreciated Mr. Morrison's comment on the learning curve, on how you feel you're so dazed at the beginning, which I think we can all relate to that.
Absolutely. And which is something that I try to explain to my students, that when I first got on a computer, it was in 1989, and it was DOS, right? And it was a PS2, and I was there, and the commands and stuff. And so a lot of them have gone on computers with Windows. And when something happens, I know what's happening behind the scenes, because I know about the original operating system. And so like, I'll go in and like, oh yeah, we can do this. And I'm not a coder. Don't start that rumor. But like, I'll be able to go in because I know I have the background information. And that's what I heard about this transition that we're going through right now, with the uncertainty of how much longer we're going to be on Zoom, accreditation visits via Zoom, and that he brings in that the DOS of accreditation with him, right? Because he's got a lot of that information already. So, also a vote in favor of continuity. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Yes.
Off mute. I will. Oh, go ahead. I'm on mute. I will make the motion that I make a motion that Jared Morrison be appointed or reappointed to the Committee on Accreditation.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second, and we'll call for a roll call vote. All those in favor when Haiju comes on?
Marisol Del Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
Ade Rodriguez.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Great.
Okay.
We are an efficient bunch, I tell you.
I think we are very efficient, and I'd like to take this moment to thank our visitors who are here with us. We have, our panelists, and I believe there's some other participants who are either listening or watching. Thank you for your interest in this process. It's a very important. The accreditation undergirds, what we do to prepare teachers at the commission. So. And thank you, commissioners, for agreeing to be part of the ad hoc committee. Staff, always grateful for everything that you do. You're the glue that keeps us together. Thank you. So our recommendations will be presented to the full commission during item 2H on Friday, at which time the commission will vote on whether to appoint the individuals that we have recommended. Having no further business, I now adjourn the April 2020 meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Commissioners,
See you tomorrow.
goodbye. All right, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.